Good morning, everybody. It is April 27th, 2018, 6:47 a.m. All right, you're looking at a Doppler radar chart of the next day and a half. It looks like it ends around April 27th at 9 p.m. But what you're seeing down here on the mid-western coast of Africa is our first official tropical wave prediction that is coming out from the National Hurricane Center, believe it or not. Now, this doesn't mean this will be a hurricane. It means that the potential is there, and that was an earthquake, sorry. Kodiak, Alaska, 2.8. So you see this big system coming off the lower bump here of the central western coast of Africa. You can see the Cape Verde Islands down in this area too. This is usually where these storms begin to cling on to each other and then turn into tropical depressions. If you remember, this is where Irma and Maria came from in the middle of last hurricane season. Now, we can look at this moving a little bit farther into time, and the reason it's a tropical wave is for a few reasons. We'll talk about that in a second. We also have this low pressure system that is moving its way up through, looks like Maryland and Delaware are just now getting the worst of the worst that this thing will offer, at least for today. It is now moving into southeastern Pennsylvania, Allentown, Harrisburg. We have Reading in there, Hamburg, Pottsville, and then Allentown. Did I already say Allentown? I think I did. Then Pocono Manor, Hazleton, Berwick, Bloomsburg, and then into Wilkes-Barre, where I used to live, actually. So that's what we're dealing with now. Here is a lightning chart to match that. You can see most of the lightning is actually off the two coasts of the Carolinas right now. We have a little bit near Chesapeake Bay. Again, that is the Delaware, Maryland area, and into New Jersey. You can see the lightning down by the Bahamas as well. That was part of this same front that we've been dealing with for the last couple days that began down in Texas. If you remember that big moisture explosion we had. You can see the yellow pockets here that are right over that Delaware River gap, basically, moving into southeastern Pennsylvania and then New Jersey. So there's a few things I want to show you here. This is actually going to be a triple hit as far as rain goes for the Northeast. We have that first wave going through today. As we move into the 28th, you see that low pressure begin to turn counterclockwise, and it begins to spin moisture from the Atlantic Ocean back down into western New York and western Pennsylvania. So this could be late Saturday, moving into Sunday. We could deal with more rain in the Northeast. And then the third hit comes with a little bit of a burst of cold air. You could see that little bit of snow up in Canada. It could be possible snow to the north areas of the Great Lakes and the north areas of New York as well as we move into Sunday. You can see it right there. Kind of moves into central New York. Probably won't be that big of a deal. If anything, it may be a dusting a little bit higher in the mountains. Those of us near sea level probably don't have to worry about snow. More of a rain deal, but you can see that high pressure pushing it along, and it's beginning to spin, so that's why it's going to be a triple hit. And there's that third part right there. So if I back up, you can see there's one, there's two, and we're getting the third right now as we speak. It just started raining here near Philadelphia in southeastern Pennsylvania. So that's what we got right now. There is another moisture system moving into the areas of Washington and Oregon right now in Northern California that will more than likely move across the Rockies and into the central area of the state. And that is because if you watch later on into next week, May 1st, May 2nd, and 3rd, that low pressure begins to gain some momentum here. And we're talking about Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. We got Colorado getting some snow there. It swoops a little bit down into New Mexico, and then it becomes an issue. And I say that because we can see right here, as this thing moves across Missouri, we got that long strip, and that could be our tornado situation as we move into May 3rd. The low pressure system being over Nebraska and Kansas at that point. If it's spinning like this, we got a west to east shear wind like we always talk about, and then this spinning, that causes a flare up in tornadoes just above Louisiana. This could be into the northwestern parts of Arkansas as well. We see that little strip across central Texas also. Really, really heavy rains moving into the south areas of the Great Lakes, and we have a strip here that goes from Iowa. It looks like it touches into Wisconsin, maybe northern Illinois, Illinois, and then it moves over the Great Lakes. So we have a lot of rain to deal with, and you begin to see how it bends over and strips over the entire east of the country. Low pressure system by Friday will be over Iowa, actually. So we have a lot to watch as far as this goes. And now, as far as the tropical wave goes, we are jumping ahead a little bit. This is May 5th. You can see May 5th we have a situation that begins in Texas. But I want you to watch down here. This is the GFS model. As we move past Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, which is just out of frame here, you can see Cuba right here, and then we have the Bahamas. You're going to see this low pressure tropical wave come up a little bit of a shallow angle well to the west, or east rather, of Florida. Now this is the GFS run, so I'm going to show you the CMC also. You can see it just off frame here. This is the wave that is just coming off the west coast of Africa right now. So we'll look at this, the GFS. You can see it begins to form a pretty dense low pressure system here out in the ocean. But if we take a look at this thing on Tropical Tidbits, a farther out view on the CMC model, that's the Canadian version, you can see that this begins to form as a wave closer to the Bahamas than the GFS shows. So I'm going to back it up for you here. And you can see that that green right there, this is what we're looking at. This is what's coming off West Africa right now. We showed that with this chart here. This is between now and 9 o'clock p.m. tonight. So you can see that wave just comes off the West African coast there. And then as we move into Tropical Tidbits, we can watch this thing move through the 27th, the 28th, 29th, 30th, and then the 1st of May. This thing gets to right around here. Now, as we move forward, you can see how this moisture system follows the outside ring of the high-pressure bubble in the Atlantic Ocean. And that's what we're going to be looking for all season long, are these storms coming off West Africa and then going through the Cape Verde Islands, where they begin to form into tropical depressions. So this thing could potentially form at any time, if being called already a tropical wave. And as we move closer to May 4th, you see it kind of dissipates a little bit, but then it reemerges right by the Leeward Islands, and then we see the beginning of that rotation right over Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, and it almost touches near the Bahamas. At the same time as that's going on, you can see the low pressure begins to show up on the chart here, 1008. As far as the pressure goes, we have two low pressures show up in the Pacific Ocean, which would be the closer of the two seasons. Pacific hurricane season begins May 15th, and as we all know, the Atlantic hurricane season begins June 1st, but we have had hurricanes and tropical storms well before those dates, and again, this is the beginning of that tropical wave. I'm going to be following this throughout the day. I don't see us getting too much more data as far as the CMC or GFS goes with this tropical wave. It may dissipate or it may get stronger. We just don't know yet. This is how the hurricane season works, guys, if you remember from last year. You can also see here on Ventus Sky, by April 5th, we begin to see that rotation right over the Santo Domingo areas of the Dominican Republic. That's going to come through Puerto Rico after it makes it through the Leeward Islands. And then you can see down here, in the Pacific Ocean, we have those two low pressure systems, possibly a third just coming off the coast here of this area of Mexico. Actually, the border of Mexico is here, so this would be South America, basically the Caribbean area. We have both low pressures in the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. So that's what we're looking at for today, guys. Here are our current ocean temperatures. We are looking at an average of 80 degrees. Basically, anything south of Cuba is all 80 degrees, and it's beginning to bleed into the Gulf. This is surface temperatures, and you're going to see this line here that rides up the east coast is also bringing up warm water from the Caribbean. Basically, the Bahamas is right in this area here. We know a lot about that because of Irma. Remember, Irma came across and hit Cuba before it went up the west coast of Florida, when everyone thought it was going to go up the east coast. So that's what we're dealing with now. Here is a little bit of the air currents up further up in the atmosphere. You can see the spin of that current storm we're dealing with in the northeast. We could see some moisture being pulled up through, looks like right through the gap here between Cancun and Cuba, and that's being pulled over the Bahamas. But again, that storm that's coming off Africa is swooping down this way, and then by May 5th they're showing it show a little bit of rotation right around the Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, and Dominican Republic. So that's what we have as of right now. Here is a more detailed Doppler chart of what we're dealing with currently in the States. You can see the rotation of this thing. These low pressure systems have had really dramatic rotations lately. And again, the jet stream is going to begin to change. We've had that dip right over the northeast lately, and that's what's been allowing all that cold air to come down from Canada. It's actually going to reverse. We're going to have that dip here, and there's going to be an up dip this way. So you're going to start seeing these systems come over the top of Louisiana, and then they're going to cut up in front of the Great Lakes rather than right over them, causing all those low pressures over the northeast rather. They're going to come up right around here, and then they're going to come this way, and that's what's going to allow the spring warm air to finally flow up from Florida in the south all the way up into the east coast. So that also is going to aid in the strengthening of a lot of these moisture systems if they make it to the northeast, and that's when hurricane season starts. So you can see how this stuff begins to come together as the seasons change. And I believe that's all we got for today. So once again, you got the GFS showing this thing. Both GFS and CMC show it forming, not necessarily into a hurricane, but a pretty significant moisture system. Now we just need to watch and see how shallow this angle is going to be. Like we said, the GFS has it way out here to the west of the Leeward Islands, and then we have the CMC model, which shows this thing actually getting into the Bahamas, possibly affecting the east coast of Florida. So there it goes, there it is right there, and it actually dips underneath South Florida. So we're talking Miami all the way through the west coast into the Gulf. So we got to keep an eye on this thing, guys. That's what we got for today. I want to get back here this afternoon. If not, we will meet back same time tomorrow morning. Everyone stay dry. That's in the northeast, and we have another system moving across that will affect areas of Texas, Louisiana, so on and so forth. All right, guys, have a great morning. It's almost 7 a.m. I will talk to you all very soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.